Okay, so hello and a warm welcome for today's webinar on Waste to Action Solving South Asia's Waste Crisis with Data and Innovation. I'm Akanksha Singh, as most of you all know that I'm the community builder at Be Waste Wise. And Be Waste Wise is a non-profit organization and we have been bridging the global waste solutions expertise gap for more than 10 years now in over 120 countries worldwide. All our content from the last decade is archived and available to our community at no cost. No paywalls. Our community members have told us that they use our webinars to train their staff, incorporate data for our webinars into published reports, influence policy, and network with experts around the world. We now seek 500 people to just give us $20 each to support our operations over the next year. With just $20, you can ensure your content stays free and open forever. This is a new campaign that we are launching, and we encourage you all to please check out our website and donate. We will also be sharing the link to the donation page over the chat as well. Thank you all for taking time out to join us. Building on the insights from the World Bank's flagship Water Waste 3.0 report, this webinar will contextualize global findings within South Asia with a focus on India and neighboring countries. Now, moderating today's session, we have Dr. Professor Rajesh Dubey. He is an environmental engineer, educator, researcher, trainer, and consultant in the area of circular engineering, environmental engineering sciences, and health, presently at IIT Kharagpur, India. We also have our lineup of speakers. Vilma Rodrigues, she's the founder and CTO of Sahas Zero Waste, a social enterprise committed to implementing holistic zero waste solutions across India. We also have Dr. Dundi Raj Pathak, serving as the president of the Center of Research for Environment, Energy, and Water, joining in from Nepal. We also have Dr. MD Shariful Alam Mondal, is a solid waste management specialist with more than 20 years of professional experience from Bangladesh. We have Arvind Neema. He's a professor, Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at IIT Delhi. We've shared the LinkedIn profiles of our panelists over the chat as well, and we request you all to please ensure that you are networking with them individually. Before we proceed further, just few announcements. This webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and on our website. Please use your Q&A function for your queries to the panel and use the chat function separately for your views, your opinions, for networking, as I mentioned, some reports that you want to share, some insights or some case studies relevant from your organization or region that you want to highlight. Please use the chat function separately for that. So back to the panel. I'll not hold much time. Over to you, Professor Dubey.
Thank you. Thank you, Akansha, for the introduction. So as Akansha mentioned, so this webinar, actually, we are focusing on looking at how the issue of Southeast Asia, like South Asia, in terms of India, Nepal, Bangladesh. So recently we had this Water Waste 3.0 report from World Bank. They had a report 1.0 and 2.0 earlier as well, as you might be familiar with. So then this report kind of talks about some data gaps in terms of bringing circular economy. So see, waste will be there. Waste is often seen as inevitable byproduct of economic growth. So it's the report challenges that assumption by showing that our future is actually not determined by how much waste actually we are generating, but how effectively we will manage it. So today's webinar is not just about understanding the latest data. We want to explore how innovation, how evidence-based policy making, how regional collaboration can help our region, the South Asia region, transform its growing waste challenges into opportunity in the form of circular economy, climate action, sustainable development, and all that. In this aspect, one of the most important part is having good quality data of in terms of how much waste we are producing, what is there in the waste. So because unless we know what is like a quantity of the waste as well as the composition of the waste, it becomes very difficult to really design good waste management infrastructure on ground, come up with the treatment technologies and all. So in today's webinar, as you already heard from Kancha, that we have experts from Nepal, from Bangladesh, and from India. So I would not take much time. My job as a moderator is kind of just to facilitate the discussion. So in the first phase of this webinar, as we do always for this Be Waste Wise webinar, we'll have some opening statement from all the experts who have kindly agreed to spend time with us. And then in the second half, we'll take the Q&A and the Q&A question and answer. So I'll strongly encourage you, while our experts are doing the opening statement, you put your question answers in the Q&A portion of this webinar platform, and introduce yourself on the chat. Anything you want to share with others, you can put it on the chat, but question answer, put it on the Q&A tab. So focus will be like, see, this is a challenge before us, and the challenge is not simply managing the waste more efficiently, but managing our resources also more intelligently. So with that thought, I would rather than taking more time, we start with Wilma. Wilma Rodriguez, she has been working for several decades now on the ground on waste management infrastructure. So floor is yours, Wilma, for next 6 to 7 minutes.
So thank you, and happy to be here, seeing all of you, sign in with different names, some of them very familiar. So really happy that we have this opportunity to have this discussion on, what we in South Asia and the other Asian countries can now bring to the table when it comes to management of waste in the global scenario. So if you're looking at the water waste report, and it's good that no less than the World Bank has come up with this report, and they have mentioned and given a lot of data, and the vision again is on circular economy. Now, what we need to understand is that we learned a lot from the West in terms of waste management. But, the focus over all these years has been more on the linear kind of a system. The focus has also been on clean. So we have learned about clean cities, but, when it comes to actually managing the waste, resource recovery, ensuring that where the waste goes, not to a landfill, but back to generators and back to consumers. Now, that is a gap which I think the West now recognizes. And this is therefore the opportunity for us in India to step in to show differently. Because today, when we say circular, we are not only talking about energy recovery, we're not only talking about incineration. A circular economy expects we as humans to take back the waste and to be accountable to the materials that go into the waste. So material recovery is a very important part. So therefore, we in India now have to be careful when we, talk about waste to energy in the form of incineration of waste. Secondly, we also need to look at definitely the livelihood aspect. Yeah, today they talk of green jobs, but if we were to burn all our waste, then the green jobs would just not be available. So I would like to use this opportunity to introduce to you the organization Sahas Zero Waste, that is a practitioner. Yeah, we have been in this space now as a business model, as a social enterprise for the last now 12 years. We are an organization, we kind of are a business model. We've done about, we are in that range of 60 crores per year, or 6 million US dollars. But our focus is on resource recovery and livelihood, environmental and social impact. So if you can go to the next slide, we are focused on the fact that we provide a professional service. We are an MSME, we are ISO certified. And if you can look at the number of employees that we have, 400 employees, mostly women from the base of the pyramid. We are across in 20 states. So what is our business model? If we can, our flagship, our next slide will show you our business model, which is working with entities that in India are known as bulk waste generators. Now, when you have in our cities, about 40% of the waste comes from bulk waste generators, and each of them generate about 1 ton to 5 tons to 10 tons of waste per day. And each of these entities are expected now, as per regulations in India, to manage their waste on site. Yeah, so you can have composting, you can have bio-CNG, you can have proper good segregation systems, and track and trace the waste to make sure that your waste goes into proper recycling, and a very small percentage then goes into co-processing. So if you go to the next slide, so this is our wet waste. The slide earlier was showing you the wet waste composting that takes place we work with brands like Goldman Sachs, Tesco, Microsoft. All of these tech parks have institutionalized a zero waste campus. Yeah, of course, we have the other verticals, but I thought for today I would just focus on how when you have decentralized systems, you can be accountable to the waste. And then we, of course, have material recovery. This is our material recovery facility in Bangalore, which is a 10 tons per day facility, which again has a lot of detail in terms of where the waste goes after it is sorted. So sorting is a very extensive exercise. It costs, it is also very, there is a cost attached to it. And that is something that we also need to realize, that if we want to bring in the environmental and the social impact, then our business model is saying that there has to be revenues from a service fee. So all our customers pay us a service fee. And of course, then there's also the revenues that we make from the sale of waste. So if you just go to the next, if you click and take a look at, this is our material recovery facility. Now, with this kind of attention to detail in terms of operations, this is what we get as impact. And our last slide talks about the SDG goals. Now, SDG goals, we're coming closer to 2030 and there is a big gap, but models like us then help us track and show how we can reduce poverty. Our team, all of them they are our own employees, so they get paid formal living wages, minimum wages. A lot of them are women, so there is justice in the system. There is attention, if you look at SDG 11 and 12, attention to reduce single-use paper, single-use plastic is something that all our campuses practice. And then when you look at SDG 17, which is partnerships, so all our customers are our partners. And that's how we kind of grow this feeling that waste is our responsibility and we should be taking care of it as much as we take care of everything else. Yeah, I'll pause here. I hope to have some questions and I'll pass it back to Professor Dubey. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilma, for giving an overview of the activities that Sahas Zero Waste is doing, and also the situation on ground from the Indian context. So now we'll kind of move to Nepal and listen to from Dr. Pathak in terms of like what is happening in Nepal in terms of waste management systems, and how in Nepal you are looking at this water waste report or several other reports also, which has come up in recent past from UNEP and other places. So what are the things happening in Nepal on the ground? So the floor is yours, Dr. Pathak, for next 6 to 7 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Dubey. And it's a pleasure to share my thought with the experts from across the South Asia and the audience joining globally today. Before talking about the Nepal, let me start with some where we stand with reference to the World Bank recent report on the global municipal solid waste, especially our region or my country. And globally, waste generation is projected to grow by 50% by 2050. But look at the South Asia, particularly, and the number is very surprising, a 99% increase over the next 25 years. And when you compare our region with reference to the income category, no doubt the high income country already generate more than waste per capita, but their growth over the same period is around 18% as compared to 97% for lower middle income country, according to the report, the category every South Asian nation falls into. And this is also another big challenge for us. Now, my concern is, are we actually prepared to handle these shorts? And my honest answers, based on experience working in Global South, especially in Southeast Asia and Africa, the answer is no. not without committing seriously to the waste management hierarchy, the gradual transformation to the open dump to the engineer landfill for only residual waste, and the circularity principle. We cannot achieve it, and we cannot bear to handle this huge amount of the waste for the next 25 years. And the picture gets frustrating to look at when you bring the treatment and disposal data, when we're talking about the circularity and resource recovery and everything. Today, the more than 70% of the municipal solid waste in South Asia is either openly dumped or never collected at all, against the global average is around 30% only. That gap compounds the risk to the public health, you see the local economy, and of course the environment. But having said that, this global report, which considered more than is nearly 217 countries with only 262 cities, and it is not a site-specific, city-wise report. And this global report is very invaluable for broader perspective, understanding for the regional trends, benchmarking, even for rough pre-feasibility costing for design of any ISWM infrastructure. I already mentioned this. They are covering around 260 cities to develop this report all over the world, and that's why it isn't was never meant to be a site specific. The waste parameters is very significantly by location, from one place to another place, one city to another cities, even within the cities, different or degree, depending upon the degree of urbanization, of course, an income level, urban scale, the culture and season. And that's why when you are going to design integrated waste management infrastructure or entire system, I think this reports only gives the broader pictures. Then you have to go in your field, you have to measure the data, then you have to design your system. That is my suggestion regarding this context. Now, to give you one example from my own work, within roughly 600 square kilometer in Kathmandu Valley, and we have 18 municipalities. This is the capital region of Nepal. Within this 600 square kilometer area, you see the per capita waste generation range from nearly 255 gram per person per day to more than 500 gram per person per day. That's why why the site-specific study is required. And that's kind of variation and global average simply cannot capture. That's why we have to be very careful on it when using this report. So here is my core message. The real problem is not a volume of the waste, it's the system behind it, our inability to measure, to manage, and to recover value from the waste. And we need to start treating solid waste management as an urban infrastructure, which is completely missing in our context in Nepal, and not one as a project. It is you see, it is the mirror of the entire society. It's not only a project like road or like sewers or something like. And the public behavior, policymakers' competency, private sector's capability, all reflected in how we handle our waste in a more efficient way. That's why that means we need the actual measure data, not estimates, not broad generalization, not generalized in the solution. Site-specific problem demand the site-specific and customized solution, which is completely missing, particularly in South Asian cities. And now the quick starters to check in Nepal. We have a 293 municipality, though the municipality here means to mix up urban and rural area, not purely urban area, generating over the 2 million tons of municipal solid waste per year right now, and expected to grow around 40% over the next 25 years. And our parameters are broadly comparable to rest of South Asian country. Having worked in Bangladesh and traveled across the several Indian cities, I would say Nepal does slightly better on collection coverage, but has somewhat less open burning. But thermal treatment and recovery infrastructure are almost absent here. Then there is no thermal treatment and recovery system exit here. Water recovery does happen is roughly 20-25% is handled informally by the informal workers and the waste generator themselves, often traditionally. by feeding the waste to the animals or like traditional composting like that. A few smaller municipalities like Dankuta, Tilottama, Bhimeshwar, Waling, and few fast-growing cities like Dankadi, they are trying to make more real effort in source segregation and recovery of dry waste as much as possible, but it's not enough till there. On the data itself, this is where it gets a little embarrassing to us. We conducted a nationwide waste characterization and quantification survey back in 2012, covering the 58 municipality. At that time, I lead this study, and the ADB published these findings in 2013. We are still, using the same data for designing our infrastructure, for making analysis for some certain, some infrastructure like implementation. That's why after 2015, Nepal restructured the local government bodies, expanding to 58 to 293 municipalities, and we have never done the comprehensive update since then. And the few studies have happened are very fragmented and use inconsistent methodology and aren't comparable and replicable to each other, And then when waste composition, you see this changing very fast, both across spatially and over time. In Kathmandu Valley, the residential share of waste was around 70% in 2012, but now it decreased to 56%. It means this difference is shifting to the commercial and institutional sources. The plastic content has increased from 10 to 12% to 15 to 17% right now. Diaper and sanitary waste were almost negligible 15 years back. Now it makes around 5% to the waste system. And this shift makes this shift matter significantly for policy. Our Solid Waste Management Act 2011 Act only mandates to bin a segregation system like organic versus inorganic, with no separate provision of household hazardous waste or sanitary like diapers, sanitary napkin. Now we are trying to update these things in the new act. That's why this is very important, how the waste characterization, change shift is help, is enforced to change our policy, not only design of infrastructure or something like. Beyond these basic physical parameters, the quantity, composition, or density, we are still far behind the chemical or engineering data like elemental composition, calorific value, or geotechnical or mechanical properties. This kind of research or lab scale technology is very common in India because like institutions like IITs and other institutions, I think we have a big professor from IITs here and you explain more about this thing. But Nepalese universities struggle to secure the research funding to tend, they rely on the secondary data and doesn't actually feed into the building, of piloting, or scaling ISWM system like India, what we are doing right now. One thing that has worked well in my experience involving the students conducting the coursework or research in the solid waste management as a part of data generation process is produce surprisingly high quality data, even with limited resources, and the municipality that engage students this way build a local understanding in methodology and ground reality, and which pays for long-term continuous data update. I think I did this modality in 2012 and 2016's data generation, and it helped very, it became very innovative model for the data generation, of the quality generation, rather than using the consultant from the different sectors. One last point I want to leave with you, the waste composition changes, it moves through the entire SWM system from upstream to the downstream. Is very different from high-income country, where essentially all generated waste is collected and transported. So the composition stay consistent from source to landfill or processing site. But in global south, including South Asia, there are significant leakage at every node of the chain. The burnable waste is burned at source, organic waste is diverted for the animal feed or household level composting or uncollected. That's why in our recent study in 18 municipalities in Kathmandu Valley, the organic waste fraction dropped from 62% at source to 46% at the transfer station and down to 39% at the final disposal site. I think that's why I'm referring these things this is very important for designing the infrastructure like anaerobic digester or like other composting or even sanitary landfill site, because in Nepal, I think Professor Dubey also familiar about this system. And many biogas plants in Nepal are sit in idly, precisely because of this poor feasibility study. And I think the feasibility study didn't account for this type of shrinkage, this type of leakage for the backstop feedstock strategy, or for the clear plan for market the end products safely. That means they just suppose that the organic fraction in the municipal waste is 65% in the Nepal, and they just projected for next 20 years and designed the anaerobic digester. And finally, they are never considered these types of leakage, and they are never try to find out this, how to substitute this type of leakage, or like feeding materials using by the co-digestion or something like that. That's why it's very important things have to consider for South Asian context rather than the developed country. And now, finally,
So
I
I
want,
think
now
maybe
I would like to, data is fuel for any planning system, and the garbage in and garbage out is very common in information system, is equally important for the planning system. That's why the quality site-specific data is not optional, but is the foundation for any successful waste management system. If we can turn data into decision into the action, then we can. I think the waste can become one of the most powerful driver of the green growth in this region, because the volume is not the problem. Our system and our thinking is the problem for all. I think I spoke more, and
sure.
sorry for that, and I stop here and over to you, Professor Dubey.
Sure. So let's move to Bangladesh then. Dr. Mandal, Professor Mandal, if you can shed the light on how things are working in Bangladesh in this context. So yeah, please, floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Professor Dubey, and contextualize, and other panelists and other members who were joined from all over the world. It is a great pleasure for me here to talk something, and I'm really grateful for inviting me. So, Akanka, can you share my slide? From the very beginning, can you go first?
It's not on slideshow yet.
Yes.
Just give me 1 second. I think there's some issue. Let me just check.
So while she's fixing that problem, one other thing, Dr. Mandal, I just had a quick look on that report. It says that Bangladesh has slightly higher per capita waste generation as compared to India, Nepal, and some other countries. So maybe you can talk about that while you're presenting as well.
Yes, thank you so much. Can you go to the slide mode, Akanka? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. So I will focus on our data and innovation in municipal solid waste management. I will give a brief overview in our country context based on my last working experience with different cities, municipalities, and development partners. Next. So if we see our generation, Bangladesh Bureau of Statistics published a report based on the survey in 2022. The national per day generation was 20,000 ton per day in terms of the municipalities and city corporation, not from all over the world. However, it comes about 7.4 million ton per year. So recent report from the World Bank, it covered global, the broader country perspectives. It says more than 30 million ton per year. It is quite huge number. And if we see the projection in 2050, so more than 50%, there will be the growth, and about 50 million ton of the waste will be generated by 2050. So the quantity is a factor, but if we want to manage this huge amount of waste, So there is a critical issue in terms of the organizational strengthening and infrastructure in place, and who are the actors. There are lots of things to talk actually, in which are all connected to the data, and gradually I will explore these things in my next slides. So in Bangladesh, actually, there are a growing number of the waste infrastructure in terms of the landfill sites, in terms of the MRF, composting, so on and so forth. However, so to strengthen those things, there are the governance, capacity building, and financial mechanisms are underway. So the thing I want to point out there, infrastructure alone will not be able to solve the solid waste management unless it is supported by the governance, finance, manpower, community participation, and the data. So data can connect the governance systems and financial mechanisms to the infrastructure operationalization. So this practice is still we need to grow, and the data, whatever we are preserving or we are collecting in the municipal level or other NGOs or development partners, development projects are doing, are mainly based on the generation, collection, transport, and this viewpoint. So I will share in my next slide how the data patterns, we need to think in the different way based on my experience in Bangladesh. So can you go to the next? Before going to the data, we have several policies and regulatory documents in place. These can guide us to different waste to be managed in the different ways in terms of the municipal solid waste or plastic waste and medical waste, electric waste, hazardous waste, so on and so forth. So as for example, our municipal solid waste management rules 2021 can guide us the roles of the municipalities, roles of the private operators, and performance of the facilities. I mean the compost plants or the landfills. So we also have different many others. Regulatory documents. However, policy is policy, but in the practice we have some gaps. So policy cannot be formulated every year. So that's why maybe I feel that always there should be always some gap with policy and practice. But how our practice can improve to achieve those, the policy or comply those policy, that is critical thing, and only data can answer those things. Next. So if we critically see this slide, I want to focus and take some time on these slides. So conventional data, whenever I work with many municipalities in Bangladesh, city corporation and development partners, most of the actor or stakeholder are think on the per capita generation, what is behind my waste. Of course, it is important. Unless I know my waste, what is behind this, I cannot manage. This is important. And what is the diversion rate, so on and so forth. But in my viewpoint, these are important, but development has ladder. If we want to improve the solid waste management of a municipality or a city corporation, it has some development ladder. Suddenly, municipality cannot jump from one ladder to another. So I feel that operational data are also crucially important, that often I found many development practitioners are overlooked and doesn't provide equal importance like the generation and other data. Operational data means how many collection vehicles, what is the capacity of the collection fleets, how many types of the vehicles are there, how many collection capacities are there. So as for example, if we know the generation, say 100 ton of a city, and if the collection fleet has capacity of 20 ton or 30 ton or 50 ton, it means we can estimate the deficit. So only knowing the generation is not enough. We need to understand and we need to focus on the operational data. And operational data can give us the performance indicator or the sustainability indicator, or operational data can give us how efficiently or how effectively my city is managing or handling the waste. And apart from the operational data, I also want to focus on something else, that I want to say the facility level data. As for example, I may have the treatment plant, I may have an MRF, or I may have the landfill. So if we think I have a landfill, so it has wide varieties of the data at the very beginning. Hydrogeological data, what is the geotechnical profiles, groundwater table, topographic data, and environmental social assessment report, so on and so forth. However, this data preservation and accessibility for many is very important in my sense, because landfill can be operated for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So at the very beginning, in the pre-feasibility level or the planning or designing level, when we collect those data, it takes time and expensive. So we need to have a culture of data management, and so that municipalities, development partners, or practitioners can understand that these data are always necessary because of these reasons. So if we see the functional elements of the solid waste management from the point of generation to the treatment and disposals, so every steps has different types of functions, and each function can dictate to store this important data, because when my efficiency goes up, my operational cost can be cheaper. And again, when my efficiency is low, my operational cost can go up. Again, the data cannot be always the quantitative. Data can be qualitative. Even though my collection efficiency high, I can check that whether my collection quality is good or not good. So something like that. So this viewpoint, we need to see the data, I think. So can you go to the next slide? So there needs some innovation, and we have some, we can think that how we can work forward. So in my viewpoint, innovation doesn't always mean that something very sophisticated and very high-tech things. So I want to say, and I always say to my counterpart in different cities and municipalities, that innovation to be defined by ourselves. If my work is different from yesterday, if my work is different from last year, if my work is different from last month, this value addition or this performance improvement is my innovation. So step by step, slowly, we can go up. Suddenly a big project comes, you can do many things, but when project ends and you cannot continue the similar things, it doesn't retain. So definition of sustainability doesn't match with this context. So if you can do something, if we can do something that can retain and that can add value from the yesterday, I want to say this is very sustainable for this time being. This small change can make good effect because it's new. And I want to say it is innovation. However, so there are simply some innovation I want to say that was not before in Bangladesh more than 10 or 15 years before. But we introduced, as for example, a compactor truck back in 2010, around like that, and a compactor truck and arm roll container, and some intermediate device, and because we have primary collection and secondary collection, and at the very beginning there is always a very scattering of waste in when we harmonize the primary and secondary collection. So waste comes from my house, but with some rickshaw van and hand trolleys. But when we load to the secondary vehicles, I mean trucks or dump trucks or compactors, we need to put the waste in the ground and pick it up again. So it creates a messy situation. However, this situation is gradually improving. So you can see the top right photo on that. So apart from that, there are some GPS device equipped with the vehicles. And landfill also has some data packs in different cities. And as I mentioned before, topographic geotechnical data and many other data that I will also talk in the later slides. And some innovation I have seen in Bangladesh, many cities like Dhaka North, Dhaka South have collaborated with some universities, and students can do these things. But I want to say that these things should be more regular, and it should be strengthened, because I have seen in many countries that large cities are always collaborated with many universities. And if a city takes always support from the consulting company or some other, it is expensive to say as for example, environmental monitoring report of the landfill. If they want to say the air quality, measure the air quality, leachate, physical, chemical, microbiological quality parameter, it takes time from consulting company. But if they collaborate with universities, so it is very good. Students can do this. University lab is not so expensive as consulting companies lab. It is my personal opinion. So we need to develop this culture, and many other way. I think there is a lot of room to, and very, very interesting scopes for data creation and data quality data creation, and data can be accessible for all who wants to develop further. Next.
Okay, I think yeah. Okay.
So I will quickly finish within a couple of minutes. So this is the real ground photos. So actually, if you see the photo, this picture can give lots of data in terms of the efficiency of the vehicles, how regular, and if we see the trucks, we can understand that how efficiently, effectively, how many trips they can make. And of course, this vehicle collection fleet has the different types of data. Repair maintenance, routine maintenance, and periodic maintenance, and so on and so forth, all are necessary to to maintain the job history of the vehicles. Next. So these are still under development stage. Many cities are designing their landfill transfer station. So I want to say that the city should keep the data. There are lots of data because climatic data and hydrogeological data, and those are very difficult to do after 10 or 15 years when these landfills will be expanded. And the central database also is necessary to maintain because after 10 years, if new project come or a city want to develop one more cell within the acquired land, so at the very beginning, at the baseline period or design stage, whatever the data produced can be used. There is not much change in the later stage. So I think that this type of database management is necessary. So good data should come a part of everyday municipal waste management, not it is a one-time project activity. And we need to develop a data acquisition, data management culture among all stakeholders. This is my last opinion. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Mandal, for a very quite elaborative presentation. So we will now come to Professor Nima. Professor Nima has been working on waste management related stuff in India for more than 3 decades now. So Professor Nima, from your experience in terms of working with different projects, so now Water Waste Report is talking about bringing circularity in the waste management system as well. So how you see it, like especially from an academic institution point of view, how you see that the academic institution can help different stakeholders kind of achieve the goal of our solid waste rules, as well as try to look at the issues that has been raised in this particular report.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Professor Dubey. Thank you, Be Wastewise, for organizing this webinar. I am very excited. Thank you, my earlier speakers who have detailed several issues related to municipal solid waste. I would like to highlight few things. I don't have a PPT, but I think I should be able to tell you some story which will be very useful for understanding what we are trying to discuss. Number one is, what is waste by definition? So waste by definition is something which has exhausted its value with the owner. And for that owner, it is not of any use, so that owner is discarding it. So that's the first definition. And I would like to say it doesn't mean really the waste is really a waste for everybody else. So for some other people, it could be a resource. And that is where we should start looking into it. So in order to have something not as a waste, but as a resource, and if we want to apply the principles of product quality to the waste quality, we should know how much is the waste quantity, one, and what is inside it, what is the characteristics. Once you know very clearly what the characteristics of the waste is, you can definitely figure out what to do with it, either in terms of reuse, recycle, treatment, or if I have to sum up, I would like to say make it and make its material useful and make the energy content inside the waste useful. If one can figure these two things out, most of the things can be addressed. I won't say that waste problem will vanish, but most of the things can be sorted out. So to sum it up, I would like to say, who knows what is inside the waste? The agency or the industry which is responsible for creating that product, which has become eventually waste. So I would like to say the producer knows the best what is inside the waste. So in case we are ready to expand this concept and make producers responsible for end of life waste to be managed, a lot of things can be sorted. For example, if somebody is, let us say we are talking about e-waste. Inside your waste mobile phone, what type of metals are, what is where inside that mobile, so it can be traced and recovered. The producer knows the best. So if this waste mobile, which has outlived its life, reaches back to the manufacturer, it will be more efficiently recycled, reused in terms of either retrofitting it, converting that into a new product, or recovering all the useful materials from the waste. So I would like to say the concept of circularity, if it is imbibed by the producers, there are two ways. One is government regulations. Government forces them to adopt extended producer responsibility. Then there are several issues related to monitoring, related to enforcement, and so on and so forth. However, if this is driven by market forces, if the recovery of the old product which has outlived its life may, and it becomes economically more viable for the producer to take it back, recover the material from that waste, it will become sort of autopilot thing, and people will automatically do it. Not, see, there are two reasons. One is we should be good to the environment, because the environment is what supports us in living. Second thing is money. So I would say money would force things much more systematically and much more automatically. So if the circular economic concepts are imbibed while anybody is designing the way product, so what will happen in the middle of its life, what will happen at the end of the product's life, right from the beginning, by design, it will be extremely useful. And I would like to say, if that happens, we would definitely see less of a waste to be managed by the municipal corporations and industry associations, rather than the producers themselves will come forward and collect the waste, take it back for material recovery, energy recovery, reuse, etc., etc., etc. There are a lot of initiatives in this aspect. Most of the higher educational institutes, especially technical institutes, are now incorporating these concepts in their curriculum. And I would like to say, I would like to underline one more thing, that we are not saying that there is a separate course which somebody should be doing. For example, in IIT Delhi, what we have done is, during our recent curriculum review, we have asked, mandated in fact, each and every department, be it mechanical engineering, be it electrical engineering, be it computer science, include concepts of sustainability into your various courses, rather than giving them one capsule course to begin with. So even when mechanical engineer designs something, our chemical engineer is looking at some process, they keep this sustainability aspects in their mind and eventually designs the processes, products in such a way that they can be recycled back very easily, because by design it is so. And by design it will ensure that you will fetch economic value when you enforce extended producer's responsibility. So we are working on it, but say long road ahead. When we say that we are changing our curriculum and training our graduates, so most likely after some 5 to 10 years you will see the changes. I don't think we have that much time in front of us. We must quickly act. In fact, the deadline was yesterday, not tomorrow. So all of us agreed to that, and we are working on it. Many companies, many industries are in touch with several technical institutes in terms of getting these concepts imbibed in their products and processes. Professor Brijesh Dubey is leading several such initiatives, I believe, and there are many other experts who are contributing these aspects. So I would like to stop here, and then again, when my turn comes in terms of answering questions, etc., I'll try to share a few more thoughts. Yeah, I'll stop here. Thank you, Professor Brijesh. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Professor Nima, for that opening remark. In fact, we had quite a bit of question, and some is already answered while other speakers were speaking. So we will get started. There is a question, of course, it seems that Nepal is quite popular. So it's there's a question for you, Dr. Pathak, that can we know how is solid waste management process in Nepal, and how is the government is trying to address the landfills? I think you already kind of talked about the process in Nepal, but specifically from the landfill issue, because landfill becomes a very hot topic in our part of the world. So how is the landfill issues are being handled? And if I can include the legacy waste sites, there is a lot of legacy waste sites in India. I'm pretty sure it's in Nepal and Bangladesh as well. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Dubey. Yeah, few things I've already addressed about from waste segregation to the final disposal, what is happening right now in Nepal. But particularly, we're talking about most of the waste we collect. Of course, the collection efficiency is high for in the bigger city or highly urbanized city, but in the rural area, it's still in the low collection rate. But the most of the collected waste goes to the open dump. This is the one of the major problem for us. I think the city is clean. We transfer the problem from city to some rural area. That is the problem issue. Even the Kathmandu Valley, our city is very clean. You see all the city seems very clean, but after the 20 kilometers far, we have one landfill site. Initially, we designed as a engineer landfill site. Everything was there, all the engineering component. But during the operational time, without following any operational guidelines, we converted this to the good engineering landfill site in the open dump site. That is the problem for us, because in other city, for example, only in a few cities, with the support from ADB or from the government side, we developed some landfill. But because of this, it's a very well-designed landfill initially, but almost all sites is converting to the dump site because of this poor waste management handling. That is the problem. That's why we have to teach our local government, how to.
Yeah, so in terms of, say, for example, in India, we are working a lot on, although the government is trying to work a lot on legacy sites, try to remediate the legacy sites. Are there similar activities happening in Nepal or maybe in Bangladesh? Later on, I'll ask Dr. Mandalam.
I think regarding the legacy waste, based on the several visits from our policymaker from Nepal to Indian cities, and I think they have make some discussion on these topics, because we have no land for the new landfill or new processing facility, and they try to identify whether this land is reclaim or not. But the problem is, for example, in India, the dump site, what we buy mine or you reclaim, is the very old dump site, already stabilized, that there is no leachate. I'm not pretty sure that every site has fulfill this criteria, but most of the sites fulfill this criteria. But here, most of the our dump sites, especially not in dump the waste in a regular basis. Sometimes you dump the waste in the upstream side, sometimes in the, downstream side. And that's why it's very difficult to say which one is the fresh waste.
Okay.
And that's why it's difficult to, to biomine, even the difficult to reclaim the land. And we don't have any standard. For example, this the control board, what do you say, like CB, India Pollution Control Board. Yeah, they have developed a lot of criteria when is start to the biomining, what are the criteria is required. At least these types of standard is already there. But in Nepal, these types of the standards are still lacking. And another issue is how to manage this legacy waste after biomining this. Of course, in India, you are talking about all this plastic and what the burnable waste was and then sent to the cement factory as RDF. But people are talking the same thing here in Nepal, but the problem is economy of scale. The plastic is very less, and the washing and the processing cost is too much high, and it's very difficult to to replace this plastic the coal as a by this plastic fuel. This is the problem regarding this legacy waste here in Nepal. Yeah.
Sure. And I think Dr. Mandal has his hands up, so maybe he wants to add from the Bangladesh side. You're on mute, Dr. Mandal.
Thank you so much. Yes. In Bangladesh, actually, we have lots of legacy sites. However, as you know, the Bangladesh is very densely packed, and finding the land is a very difficult job. And again, even though you find a good land, and whether it can be used for landfill or not, it is another big job. And so many legal procedures and compliances.
You get too much rain also, like a lot of rain in your area. So that is also another.
Too much rain and groundwater table is too high, and our regulation says we need to keep at least 2 meter distance from the bottom of the cell and to the groundwater table. So when the rainy season comes, we have huge flood all over the country. You can imagine the situation. So we need climate resilient, and some innovations are still going on, is still in the research, and some works are still underway. We are hoping that next 1 or 2 years, we will be able to see some landfill who can cope up with this type of circumstances. So I have seen one question here. Someone is asking that.
Since you are already talking, what type of data needed for, I think that's rural.
Institutionalization, solid waste management. Okay, I got the idea.
In rural Bangladesh.
Yeah, thank you so much. This question is very, very important, actually. So as I told you, institutionalization of the system is very important. And our in institution cannot be in solid waste management system in the institutions like rural areas cannot be done spontaneously, need support. External facilitators, actually, development partner or project is necessary. However, so my point is that based on my experience, I am saying that there are so many datas. All datas are not necessary at the very beginning, but I want that to institutionalize the system, the demand of the data to be driven, to come from the stakeholders, and we, the facilitator or expert or consultant, whoever work with government, our job is to unlock their imagination so that they can understand, to plan and to execute the job these data are necessary. So as for example, not only the number of population, not only the how much waste generated, how much equipment is necessary, but at the same time, we need to understand that knowledge, attitude, and practice of the community. So CAP survey is necessary. At the same time, willingness to pay, and so that gradually from small we can develop. Rural area is nothing. Actually, they are disposing waste here and there. So we need to change the behavior. At the same time, infrastructure, collection infrastructure need to adapt. So slowly. And rural municipalities or rural upojelas in our country still are not used with the solid waste collection system, actually, basically in the upojelas, not yet established. However, it will take time. So demand creation is necessary from the project side or consultant side, and the data priority, of course, should come from them, from the target stakeholders.
Thank you, Dr. Mandala. So, Madam Wilma, I'll club two questions together and put that to you. The question is that in many cities in India, we're getting the data becomes difficult scenario because we don't take data is very limited. That's from Surya Teja, and then Manoj Singh Shekhawat. Actually, he comes from Jamshedpur. He also talks about that different city reports they use different methodologies. So although the data is there, but the data is not comparable because there are different methodologies are being used. And should India develop a standardized national digital waste accounting framework so that we have transparency, compatibility, and evidence-based decision making? So Wilma, if you want to take it, and then if Professor Nima wants to add to that, we'll come to him later. Yeah.
Yeah, so that all, the data is important. And I don't think it's so difficult to plan to get the data. It just needs consistency. We're seeing that, starting with very basic fundamental data for households, door to door, how much the route maps, GPS, all that is available to us. So digitally, it's not a problem. Yeah. And I believe, except that the ULBs, etc., have to mandate it. Now, I think one of the big, the trends today is to have across cities what is called this command and control center. And this is also, a lot of it is being digitally driven. So you have data that is coming from the ground, and then there's a control center. But we have to, it's not only about the technology. So we're seeing very often that these command and control centers, when they are operating from wherever they are not actually linking up with the real problems on the ground. So the data is one aspect of it, but the data matching with implementation, door-to-door collection, communications, that is a system that we have to drive. It can't just be only data coming out and the system falling apart. So both have to actually match together.
Thanks.
But I believe it's not difficult. It just needs commitment. Yeah, we all know that very well. Yes. It needs commitment. Yeah.
So yes, thanks to Wilma. Professor Nima, there is a question on looking at that most of the circular economy models, they are based on the concept coming from developed countries, where they have high source segregation, strong infrastructure. So from an Indian perspective, how we can redefine circularity? During your initial remarks, you did talk about it. So our realities are mixed waste. We get dense population, lot of informal recycling, and our municipal resources are limited. So based on that aspect, how we can really bring circularity in India? You're on mute, sir.
Yeah. So you are right. We are being faced with a very different challenge than a textbook answer to circularity. I completely agree there. However, for example, I'll tell you what I mean by making small steps. Amazon and Blinkit, they supply several things to several customers. If we just start taking back packaging by them, we mandate that whatever packaging they are bringing with the product, at least packaging, they will take it back. It will make a big difference. It will start making a big difference. Same person, just 2 minutes they wait, take back the packaging. It's simple, easy. So what I'm trying to say is, I'm not talking about immediately jumping into 100% circularity, especially in India. And especially I'm talking about some waste which can be clean, relatively segregated if we start doing something like that. And these things will create a big optics. I completely agree. We have a tendency to mix everything and use just one dustbin, even if municipal solid waste management rule says that at least 3 dustbins at the source. So the change will come, but it will take a lot of time. A lot of awareness is needed to be brought to people. So I think education may make a big change. School curriculum, right from there we start, and those kids become, the students become our brand ambassadors, and they try to promote how to segregate at each household. So the mixed waste will, if we don't segregate, the problem remains very, very complicated, very, very tricky. We may try doing that mixed waste goes to a central facility where we segregate, but definitely it is going to be energy inefficient and also material inefficient if we keep doing that. And that is one of the major reason why the lot of things, if I'm not wrong, our friend from Nepal, I forgot the name, he was mentioning that waste streams gets stolen from the point it is collected in bulk, and by the time it reaches to the treatment facility, people keep taking away the useful things from it. That is one reason. Second thing is illegal lease people are dumping. That's a separate issue. But for example, in Indian houses, you will find newspapers are never, most of the medium class people never will throw the newspapers of the month. Whole month we'll collect and try to earn about 150 to 200 rupees depending upon which newspaper you are buying. So we will definitely keep it segregated. At the end of the month, some kabadi wala will come and then they will wait, will sell the newspapers, waste newspapers. What I am trying to say is whenever we have opportunity of earning money from the waste, we will never make that thing as a waste. We will keep it segregated clearly. So packaging, newspaper, etc., glass, metals which come out of the houses are from the right from the source. They are segregated and cleanly sold to the kabadiwalas. However, we find it very convenient to keep mixing organic things which are waste food material, etc., with other things. That must stop. Otherwise, then the problem will remain complicated and it will remain very difficult to solve.
Thank you, Professor Nimad. So we are actually already 11 minutes past our time that was there. So maybe I'll just take, I'll try to combine some of the questions which is still there and take last, and while you're answering the question, include your last minute thought as well. So, Madam Vilma, there is a lot of talk about informal sector, and that it's true for Nepal and Bangladesh as well. Informal sector does play a very important role. So, how the data does not get reflected very well. So, one question is there, kind of couple of questions are there, which kind of leads to how we can take that data from informal sector more into our calculation when we talk about circular economy and all that. So, maybe we start with Madam Vilma and then go to Dr. Pathak and Dr. Mandal.
Yeah, so integration of the informal sector is also part of the SWM rules, and I think we really have to put attention to that. Just because for so many years they have actually helped us manage the waste doesn't mean that we have to continue in this manner. We definitely have to put attention to it, and that's the reason why we have to also understand as consumers that we can no longer really expect that all our waste, we get incentivized for it. We have to really learn to pay the real price of collection, sorting, and then the disposal, or rather the transport to recyclers. So it's a complicated subject to address, but I just put on the table that in this region, in this part, Southeast Asia, we have to now learn to pay polluter pays, use that polluter pays principle so that there could be a better justice system to people working with waste, including the informal sector. So even when we give our scrap waste to a kabadiwala, we'll have to be careful to make sure that kabadiwala has the kind of infrastructure so that he will be able to pay minimum wages and pay his rent and all of that. So I'm saying the financial part of the system we need to fix, and therefore, make sure there's a better livelihood for everybody.
Thank you, Vilma. And then, so Dr. Pathak, what's the role of informal sector in terms of the entire data and some maybe innovations too? Like if you want to say what is happening in Nepal.
Yeah, I already mentioned whatever we did in terms of recovery here in Nepal, mostly from informal sector. Just I give one example here in Kathmandu Valley, in 18 municipality in the capital region. We have almost 1,500 ton per day waste is being generated right now. And out of 1,500 ton per day, around 300 plus ton per day is being recovered because of this informal people. They are not from the formal system, from the municipality, from the government system, but all this, what we say, like kavadiwala, the informal people, the waste pickers. That's why this around 10 to 15,000 people are working here in just collecting the waste from household level. The most of the waste from the clean waste, from the, from the shores. That's why it's a very important role for managing their waste. But the one, the sad part is we are talking about in every document, we have to formalize, because they are the very skillful and very knowledgeable people in terms of waste sorting and waste recycling. That's why we should formalize. But the problem is how to formalize. It's become, it's become one of the very challenging part. Here in Nepal also, we try to do something like, but here in Nepal, the majority of people come from the India, especially from the informal sector, because they have a skill and sorting of the waste. And one of the project tried to, the formalize, they providing some identity card or from government ID, something like. But it is because it became the difficulty, because from the different countries and how to handle these things, and we're not able to do it. But as mentioned, Wilma, right now, the first thing to recognize them is to improve their working environment. Now they are working in a very bad working environment. That's why government or city government have to develop at least some standards. You should have these types of the working environment. Then there, of course, they have some, like formalization process start. Then we have to pay them as per their effort, as per their skill and knowledge, because they are the one of the knowledgeable and skillful people, especially for the when for operation of MRF and other things. That's why when we develop or implement some big MRF, we can utilize these people as a farmer worker there, rather than training the other unskilled people. Like, this is the right way to start formalization of these informal people. But we have to stop right now what they are working in the working environment. This really, these terrible things they are doing right now.
So, Dr. Mandal, you want to add something to that in terms of something new from Bangladesh on that part?
Not new, actually. Thank you so much. Actually, the informal sectors are connected with the full chain from the source to the disposal side. As for if I think that in the disposal side, there are lots of informal waste workers. However, so city already started to register them, who are they, and there are some programs for their occupational health safety and some feeding of nutritious food in the past. However, continuity is a question. At the same time, city is thinking that two things, actually. One is that if you want to formalize, then it is very difficult to formalize through the existing regulatory procedures of the cities, but they cannot also fire them, because they can pick the recyclables and they can create the airspace of the landfill, so landfill capacity can be enhanced. However, but if you think at the very beginning, at the point of generation, our regulation, solid waste management rules 2021 restrict us to segregate in three categories. So once we categorize in the three, so from the source, three streams. So certified collector are getting the recyclables. So within those certified collector, the informal can integrate, and already in the process of integrating, and they are getting the recyclables, something like that. There are many things actually happening, and there is also chain. Out of the municipal chain, there are forward linkage of the recyclables, and in these sectors also many are working in the informal way. So everything cannot be shouldered by the municipality also. So of course,
Thank
it's our job for advocacy, but
so we'll give last like maybe 1 minute to Professor Nima to kind of give his final thought, and then we'll hand it over back to Akansha. So Professor Nima, any final thoughts?
Yeah, there is a long way to go in waste management. I remember doing PhD about how many? About 30 years back. Many thoughts, for example, reuse, recycle, treat, then dispose, are not new. They are age old. But in terms of implementation, we need to really walk the talk. So that is very, very important, I believe. We are progressing well. However, our progress is slower than the quantity of waste coming up. So I must say that we must match the with the same pace. The waste is exponentially increasing in terms of not just quantity but even in complexity. So characteristics is changing. We just talk about waste as a number. How much is the quantity per capita? But seasonally it changes. From time to time it's changing. From city to city is different. So it's a very, very complex thing. So what I'm trying to say is, let us hope for the best, that we do something matching with the quantity of waste, rather than lagging behind in terms of action. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Nima. So now I hand it back to Akansha for kind of wrapping up today's webinar.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Professor Dubey. And I would thank all the panelists for taking time out and sharing their knowledge and experience on this topic. And I'm sure, I mean, we can see the overpowering responses that we have got over the chat and also on the queries they're still pouring in. So I'm sure this session has truly reflected the power of bringing diverse perspectives from Bangladesh, from Nepal, India, and the on-ground implementation, research policy, all these perspectives that we get to hear to move beyond dialogue and towards solutions. I hope that all the attendees were able to get a deeper understanding, and also they were able to have some sparked ideas and partnerships and actions on this. Thank you so much, and we'll ensure that we pass on all the pending unanswered questions, if there are any, to the panel. And you can connect with our panelists over the LinkedIn as we share the profiles over the chat as well. As I mentioned, this webinar is being recorded and will be uploaded on our YouTube channel and on our website. If you like to stay updated on our future events, please do subscribe to our newsletter and follow us on social media. We're not going to take much time. I think we're beyond the time limit. So thank you so much again, and good day to all.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you.
very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
very
Professor
much.
Pathak. Thank you,
Thank you so
Professor
much.
Nima. Thank you, Manjul sir. Thank you, Vilma, for taking time out. Really, really appreciate everybody to extend the time and be there on this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.